show. Hey, Jax.
Hey, Erica. I'm excited about our discussion today. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited to see you.
Yeah, it's been a while. I feel
Oh,
like it's been a long while.
yeah. We are back at it here with season 5. Thank you for joining us. We've got a solo show today. Jax and I are going to be talking about something super, super relevant to us right now. Conversations, communications, active listening. Ooh, there's a lot to unpack here. And honestly, guys, I think we're going to split it up into maybe another more deeper dive on just communication styles. But for today's show, really just want to dive in and talk about seeking to understand rather than, what I call keyboard warriors of just quick, rapid fire responses.
Yeah. Yeah. Active listening. Spot
Yeah.
on.
So to kind of kick off the conversation, Jax, let's talk about some of the recent scenarios, that you and I have been faced with, some challenges, and let's just say in the workplace primarily with peers in terms of having situations where we've been feeling like, this communication would have likely gone better. So let's talk a little bit about. I'll let you go first and share the scenario that you shared with me recently. That really could have been a phone call.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I think sometimes we leverage the chat message too often, and especially working virtually. I know, and you know this, one of my last clients that I had refused to get on calls with me or my team. She was remote, and then she wanted to do everything, not even through emails, but through Teams chat, everything from daily planning to task or everything without meeting with your team. And so there was a lot of, as you can imagine, miscommunication, but something that I have worked really, really hard on, and you know this because of just my own challenges, is coming from the military, being a very direct individual, especially a woman coming out of this, spending over a decade in the special forces. I was very direct. And I realized very quickly in the corporate sector that you cannot take the extreme management approach of like just in a way almost attacking people to get things done. Instead, if you want to be a good leader, like you can certainly, take the other approach of being an extreme manager, but we're going to be talking about communication strategies of being a good leader, leading with empathy and understanding. And what I had to learn is that you can deliver the exact same message that I was delivering before in that aggressive approach just by tweaking a couple of words. And it's literally that simple. I mean, tone does have a factor, but we're thinking Teams chats. So much stuff happens through Teams chats that just a few things that you say, just changing a few words at first can make a world of difference. And one thing that, for the example that I had that I brought up to you recently, is that I was recently added to a group chat, and there was a VP who added me, another VP, and then another senior director, and then a manager into the chat. I personally probably would not have done that, but I didn't create the chat message. And then the message started with an accusatory tone immediately of, I don't agree with why you did this. It needs to be changed to this. This person also agrees with me, and this person also agrees with this. As soon as I saw it, Erika, I told you I went defensive, and it wasn't even about me. It was about this manager. And I immediately went defensive, but then I immediately flipped on my like empathetic, like smart leadership mindset of like, take a step back. This is a typical pattern of this person, like kind of watch what happens and how this unfolds. And I knew that the manager was going to address it appropriately. She always does. I've seen her actually, unfortunately, be put in similar situations, and she addresses it very, very good. What I would have done in this situation, and I want to be very clear that I'm not standing here on a podium being like, that's totally wrong. You shouldn't have done that, because Erika, I know that there's history and there's context there of why that frustration is happening. Absolutely. But what I can see is like, gosh, why didn't she just, instead of starting it accusatory, just say, hey, I saw that you put this as red. Can you explain to me, or you put this as amber because it was a color thing. Can you explain to me why you felt it should be amber? Because from my understanding and these individuals' understandings, we believe it should be red. Can you provide some explanation for me? I truly believe that by posing a question and allowing the person to answer it, you're creating a collaborative environment instead of a hostile environment. And I have noticed that by doing that and by asking my team members, by asking individuals why they did something, it doesn't put them in a defensive mode. Instead, it lets them explain why they did it. And then you can ask me questions and it's a collaborative space. And then I can ask you back, like, this is why I did this. Can you explain to me why you think it should have been red versus amber? And now we're in a collaborative environment versus an accusatory of I'm suddenly wrong now. I've got all these senior leaders in this chat and I'm getting blasted with I'm wrong and all these people think I'm wrong. Like that, I couldn't, like, how would you
How
feel?
could you not have your walls up?
Yeah. I
I,
mean,
yeah, it's a human response, and I'm glad that, you know, you took the time to take the step back and do that reflection, because if I'm in that individual's perspective, like, I'm cornered. I'm feeling like all these people are now having, you know, preconceived notions about me. I am being, you know, really put in bad light over one situation, and I
yeah.
haven't been given an opportunity to express the why. And
Mhm.
the other aspect of this is we all have blind spots, and
Yeah.
so, you know, we don't know everything, and there may be things that I'm missing. So I always encourage, like, don't just go with, hey, what you have to say or your decision making is always 100% spot on. There
Yeah.
has to be some give and take. And then, second to that, this individual doesn't have room to even shift how that individual is going to handle it the next situation go round, right?
Mhm.
So if the expectation is that, hey, you want her to fall into line with this way of thinking and this is the results that you're wanting to get, you're not giving the opportunity to learn. You're not sharing, hey, my expectation is this,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
It's just, you did wrong, shame on you.
Mhm.
I'm blasting it in front, I'm making it public.
To your
And then you
boss.
have, yeah, to your
Yep.
boss and other individuals that, you know,
Yep.
that begs the question of, did they also all need to be included, right?
Yeah.
Like, check the audience.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that I've always tried to live by, is that praise is a public situation, and then when you're giving constructive feedback, um, doing it in a one-on-one forum so that you can have a more productive collaborative conversation, to use the word
Mhm.
that you use, is is always the best bet. It's how you seek to get actual results and hopefully modify the outcome that you want.
Yeah. And you talked about, you know, maybe not everybody needed to be in that group
Yeah.
chat. Do you think that based on, I gave you, a little bit of that, so you don't have as like the 360 context, but based on what I have provided you, do you think that maybe it should have just been a phone call? Maybe the
Absolutely.
individual could have easily given this manager a phone call, or it could have been a private message with a follow-up phone call.
I think in these situations, if I am ever in a position where I don't understand an approach or a direction that's being taken, the first thing is ping an individual, be mindful of their calendar, right? So don't just throw something and expect, or give them a phone call and expect them to be, you know, available right then and there. I also want to give individuals time to maybe go back to their work and see, you know, hey, do I need to refresh on this before I get a phone call, right? So send a message, first step. Here's why I'm reaching out, in a very nice and open, so you're kind of leaving an opening. Would love to set up some time. Do you have 15 minutes to discuss?
Mhm.
What works best for you? Put the ball in their court. It may be later that day. If it's time sensitive, make that clear, right? Like, I need to get
Mhm.
this done and reported up to my boss by end of day. Do you have any time before 1 p.m. to discuss, right? Like, set that parameter, clear expectations. Don't just leave it in limbo. Then that's a phone call, right? Yes, I'm free from X time to X time. then at that point you get on the phone. Hey, I need to understand this before I roll it up. Give me your perspective. Maybe they come to you and they're like, yeah, I was unsure actually of whether it should be this result or this result. Can you help me understand how you would think about it? And maybe their tone and their talk track is helping you kind of see, oh, maybe I do need to provide them more color, more guidance in this area. Maybe that's something that you need to give them more of as a leader. Or they see it and they're like, yeah, I firmly believe it's this. And you're able to talk to them, help me understand. Maybe you saw blinds, maybe you have a blind spot in something that you didn't see. Or alternatively, maybe there's something they missed that you can use as a coaching opportunity. But at the end of the day, a 15, 20-minute conversation there from start to finish, you've accomplished a lot of trust building.
Mm-hmm.
You've done coaching. You've gotten expedited results in terms of what you needed to do to report to your leadership. And overall, no one walks out of that conversation feeling like they're not supported or that they're being bashed for asking questions. We are all, as human beings, entitled to ask questions and to make mistakes. None of us are perfect. And I think being part of a healthy workplace is being given the space and the room to do that.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a little bit of a disservice of just getting a blind message with, hey, you messed up. It's not a good.
Yeah, definitely. I don't appreciate that approach, and I'm not sure, how I'm going to address that going forward in those certain circumstances, because the last thing I also want to do is then blast them back. So I have my own challenges within that space of like, how do I create or how do I combat a toxic work environment and create a positive work environment? And that can obviously, we can have another whole episode on that, but
Another episode.
yeah, we will totally tie that in of like, how do you work in a toxic environment?
Yep.
And toxic might be, diabolic. I might be like over exaggerate, but that's in my opinion, that is toxic. And that's people, like you said, people deserve to be able to have space to ask questions and not feel like they're going to be blasted. And some of the things that you said, I tie it into, and what I had to learn as a leader coming out of the military and going into the civilian space is that you need to learn to lead with empathy. And one of the things that I will immediately do is I will try to seek to understand where they're coming from. And that is not just in work, but like in life. What are their challenges? We all have silent battles we're all facing. And I truly take this stance of like, now, unless your employee is actually not doing their work, which we all have those, and we have to put them on personal development programs, PIPs, and all of those things. But typically, I truly believe that everybody is acting in their best manner, doing the best job they possibly can. So when I see a mistake happen, my first instinct isn't to go to, you screwed up. It is instead, I don't know if you do the same thing, but the first thing I try to do, and it's always served me well, is to go, I wonder why they made that decision. And you touched on this, but I literally do this exercise in my head where I go, I wonder why they did that. Is it lack of understanding or experience, or is it truly just a mistake? Like is it a miscommunication, a misunderstanding? What has transpired? And typically when I have taken that approach in my life in the last few years, as I've adjusted my leadership style, it has not guided me wrong. Now, you have those one-offs where you just have that employee that is just not doing their job, but those are different than the ones that just make mistakes. The person today truly just made a mistake. That is it. Communicate that, understand that, take a step and go, I wonder why they made this decision this way. Because you can learn something from it. And that's the thing too. I think you touched on it too, is like, this is education for both, because what I've realized where I'm at is that I don't know everything. And sometimes they teach me why they made that decisions. And sometimes I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Okay, let's stick to that. I understand that. Like,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was thinking of another scenario where I had somebody, miss a deadline. And luckily it was a minor deadline, right? But like at the end of the day, not in character for this individual.
Yep.
Someone that I've worked with for years. And when something like that happens, taking that step of you don't immediately jump to, ooh, they missed something. It's, oh, this is out of character. I wonder what's going on.
Mhm.
And that peeling back the layer of, this is just a conversation, right? We jump in, we make sure when, what's going on, we're understanding, we're providing the support. Obviously, when you're in client services, you know this, we got to make sure the work gets done,
Oh,
right? So
yeah.
the work gets
Right.
done, no worries. But then after that seeking to understand conversation, it turns out that there's something larger going on there, right? There's a personal situation. And I mean, we all have things that happen in life. And I think that sometimes the gravity of the situation can be so big that you forget to check in on the work stuff, right? And if it's a one minor slip up here and there, right, it wasn't a detrimental like but it was something that was out of character. It's building that bridge of collaboration and communication of, hey, next time it's okay to just shoot me a text so that I can pick up and figure out whatever, right? Like, don't
Mhm.
even worry about going through Outlook or,
Mhm.
Slack or Teams or whatever appropriate work method. Like, we've got your back. We're
Mhm.
going to be there for you. If something like this happens again, shoot us a message. We'll make sure that all the work stuff is covered. Because, I mean, if you think about it from that individual's perspective, you come back, you're dealing with stuff that's personal. You may not feel super comfortable giving details or talking about it, but then add another level of complexity. You're feeling like you let your client down. You're feeling like you let
Mhm.
your team down. And so the last thing that you want is somebody telling you what you already know and rubbing it
Yeah.
in, right?
Yeah.
So coming back to that supportive work environment, I think is super important. And then obviously, it's a conversation. It's not, oh, no worries, you get a free pass. It's, hey,
Mm-mm.
this isn't
Mm-mm.
like you, and acknowledging that, right? That goes a
Yep.
long way. And then you likely don't have that issue again.
Mm-mm. Yeah, you nailed it. This is not, we're not talking about a free pass here or being a pushover, because you still have to have those hard conversations. I had a employee today that there was a misunderstanding, miscommunication. He was a little late in responding to a client email. I asked him and talked to him, and I was very direct with him, but I asked him a question. I said, it's in my understanding that this was sent at this time. You did not respond or take action at this time. However, I know you were sick, but can you explain to me why did it take so long? And then I also provided recommendations to them and said, in the future, when you know that you're behind on work, send an email just letting them know, hey, I just want to let you know I'm tracking this and I'll get back to you in the next week or so. Like, also giving them tips and tricks, but letting them know, like, this isn't okay. And that's what
Yeah.
I let him know. Like, in the future, we can't let this happen, but here's some techniques for you to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, there's a fabulous leader that I work with that is very much of the school of thought of, hey, you receive a message, respond immediately and say it's acknowledged.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll admit I need to get better at that. I usually am like, let me flag it. I'm going to
Yeah.
put it on my to-do list, and then by end of day I'll get to it. But there are some client scenarios or even internal, like, high priority items that it may go a long way and say, hey, I've acknowledged this. Here's
Mhm.
when I plan to get you a response,
Yep.
no later than end of day. And if it's
Yep.
going to be till tomorrow, say end of day tomorrow. And even then, let's just say you don't get what you need. Once you look at it, you're like, actually, this is a much bigger task. You still follow up and you check
Yep.
in. Hey, after further review, this is actually going to take longer than anticipated, but I wanted to check in since I committed to giving you a response by end of day
Yep.
today. Here is the updated timeline. Here's the game plan. Let me know if you want to discuss, and continue to leave that door open for collaboration.
Yeah, those are all such great points and things that I slowly had to learn the hard way. Because you think that I learned it the hard way, because in the military, when I was in corporate America, and then I got a little military assignment briefly working with the DoD, and I noticed the impact of sending an email and it going into the black hole and never getting responded to. And that, like, it matters. Those little messages of like, hey, I've received, we'll get back to you, that matters. They know that they're seen, they're heard, you're going to get back to them. It goes so, so far.
Yeah.
And it ties into something that you've touched on, which is the word of like trust building. And not only are you building trust with the client, like that example, But those things like following up with teammates, following through the communication strategies, all these things that we've been chatting about all tie into building trust. And you get trust through consistency.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have trust with your team, they want to do the best job for you. They want to show up on time and go above and beyond because they truly feel like you care about them. And I know, like, from my perspective, when I've worked with crappy bosses, I just get to the point where I'm like, you like, what do they call it? Silently resign already. You're just
Yeah.
there punching a time card. I don't want my team to ever feel that way, but you have to build the trust. You have to, support them and not point the finger at them, but let them know, like, hey, I know you got busy, but here's some techniques, and then hold them accountable. People want to be held accountable, but they want to know that you see them, you hear them, and you appreciate them are big, big things. So I guess before we wrap it up, what would you say if you could tell our listeners 3 things that they could do today to become a better leader and a better listener? What would you say those 3 things would be?
Ooh. That's tough. It's tough to bottle it up to 3, but like, let's just say, take a step back, take a breath.
Mm.
Don't move too fast. We're all guilty of that. Moving too fast and not seeing, what the topic is, who your audience is. Cause I think that those 2 things are very, very important. There's some topics that you really need to be more mindful about communicating. And the forum is very important. Same with the audience. I think beyond that, when we talk about the audience, think of who you're discussing this with. As you work with these individuals more and more, you'll know whether they want a phone call, whether they're more receptive to you taking that time to quickly respond to their chat because they're moving quickly and then following up with a phone call. That communication method, that comes with time. So look to see who you're talking to. Is this somebody that you don't really know? I mean, that definitely will change your approach. And then I think continuing to assume positive intent with everything that you're doing. I always say, that trust but verify. But if you go in with a positive mindset, you're going to have better outcomes. We all want to do good, and we all want to be part of collaborative teams. We want to produce value. And I think that that's really core, is having that purpose in day to day. I'll ask you though, is there anything that I didn't touch on that you would add to the mix? If literally nothing else was heard from our conversation, this is all you're hearing.
I know. Yeah. I would add one thing, and this is just what helps me when I was trying to get out of my rut of being a extreme manager and kind of aggressive to a leader that people wanted to follow, is that I had like something to trigger me. And what I do is like, I wonder why they did this. Like, figure out what that thing is for you to sit back and all the things you said, but combining that sit back and be like, what is it? And write it down, write it on a sticky note. So it triggers you of like, maybe it's seek to understand. Maybe it's a quote where you say, why did they do this? Like, or maybe it's ask a question before accuse. Like, whatever that trigger is, that's been the huge help for me. But I can tell you, I didn't get here on my own. I got here because I not only had bad leaders, but then I had really amazing people in my life that showed me compassion and that asked me questions instead of accusing me. And then I started to feel, oh my God, this actually feels really good. I want to do this to others. So don't be afraid to try different techniques and then ask for feedback. Ask your employees for feedback. And tell them, have a one-on-one. I'm working on my leadership skills. I want you to be honest with me. Are there things that I could do better? They might be terrified and they may not want to share that with you right away. But if you do that regularly, I do it. I mean, back in the past, I'd be like, oh man, this is going to hurt. But now I'm pretty confident that my team would be like, no, you're awesome. Yeah, you could probably do X, Y, and Z better. And that's not my ego talking. I truly I love my team, and I'm very grateful and thankful for my team. And I just take that very thankful and grateful approach, because I would not be successful without my team. And I think 100%. You need to take that approach when you're leading people.
Yeah. No, beautifully said. I think that Coming from a place of we're lifelong learners and we all have so much, room for growth at all times. And we got to lean on that feedback to become better leaders. And because no two individuals are exactly the same, and what works for one doesn't work for the other. So I think that is the pretty little bow to put on this episode, and then more to come on this topic. I think next I want to dive on communication style. So we'll pencil that in coming up. But thank you so much for sharing your examples, opening up today, and diving into this topic. I think it's super, super important. I hope that you all found it super valuable too.
Yeah, we're going to be this season 5. We're going to be producing more of these one-on-ones with us because we keep getting constant feedback that you guys are loving. Like, we literally, whenever we do a one-on-one, we get immense amount of feedback. Not that we don't get feedback on our other episodes. We just get much more when it's just us. So we felt like season 5, we were just going to dish it all, Erika and Jax. So we hope you guys like this style. If this is your first time here to Cyber Chicks, welcome. I am Jax. That is Erika. We come to you every other week with a new episode. So our intent is to demystify cybersecurity, and we talk about cybersecurity topics as well as what you saw here, kind of leadership and soft skills. So it would mean the world to us if you hit that subscribe button, you liked it, and you shared it out with others. And finally, thank you to the Simply Cyber community. We love you guys. We love you. And we're so grateful for all of your support. Thank you guys, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
See you soon. Bye.